Welcome to your daily dose of salt and light with myself, Nadine Ness. Today's going to be a heavy episode, and I have I think I have like 15 or 20 tabs to share with you guys. A lot of it are videos, some of it are posts, but I'm going to be talking about the Ukraine Russia war and what I've learned in the last week. To be honest, before I was kind of uninformed on it, or I would say ignorant of what's actually happening. Is that the right word? I think it's ignorant. I just didn't know much about it, and I kind of forced myself to look into it a little bit more. If I'm going to be speaking about it, I want to learn, okay, what exactly is going on. Now, I did some digging. That's why actually been digging the last like hour and a half. I was ready to start the episode at 12 o'clock, but I'm like, I want to get a little bit more deep into this. And I'm going to talk just about this. I think I have two posts before I start going to the Ukraine Russia war, and just two posts that I want to announce that are kind of happening or relevant to Saskatoon, sort of. And then I'll get into everything kind of that I've learned in the last week. So let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if everything sounds okay. I just realized I have there you go. No, it's too white. I feel like it's too white. Maybe it's because I have the regular window open as well. So the lighting's a little bit different than usual. But anyways, I'm going to get started. But yeah, let me know where you're watching from. Again, I'm a little bit late in starting the episode just because I wanted to make sure I had all the information. I wanted to try to get different perspective as well. And audio is great. Okay, perfect. And then I also asked Grok a few things just to get more clarification because some of it I couldn't find anything on Putin's take on things and stuff. So I'm just gonna go based on what Grok said. And I try to do somewhat balance, but I will say I am a bit biased in my opinions because I am a conservative and I follow conservative voices. So a lot of the information that I'm bringing up are basically within my circles, which is mostly conservative. So, but yeah, so I'm going to try to be as balanced as I can, but I do recognize I am slanted a bit. I am a bit biased. I am not Ukrainian. I am not Russian. I am Acadian and from Saskatchewan, Canada. But I do have opinions on this issue because it does affect us. And I'll talk about why it affects us here in Canada and why I'm talking about it. So, yeah, it's great that everything's working okay. It, also, not yesterday, Saturday, Jonathan and I were going to do an episode. We couldn't get the sound to work for both. So I'm going to go. uh, we're having that same issues that I've had many times. We couldn't get proper sound. So I have to go buy something at the store, which I haven't gone yet. So maybe I'll go this afternoon, depending how late this episode goes. So I'm still planning on doing an episode with Jonathan to talk about uh, not Western separation, but Western alienation. That would be it. So Jonathan really wants to talk about that. Oh, and I have someone watching, Neil Ness. We have the same last name. I wonder if we're related. And if I don't know that we're related, it's because my husband's family name is Ness. So I took his name. And we have David watching. You know, I have some few regulars and I wanna give them a shout out. David is a regular he's watching from YouTube and he's always watching this episode. So I love having regulars that comment all the time. I don't see Maria here yet, but she's another regular that basically almost every episode. So, yeah, I'm going to talk, David, I'm going to cover some of that stuff. So I won't get into much of the details. I'll just let the people who know more about it talk. And that's why I have a lot of videos. So I'm going to try to keep this within an hour and a half, but there's a lot. So the videos are mostly like a few minutes long. I don't have anything too long. I just try to grab videos from people that I trust and follow. So again, I don't agree with everything these people say. I just kind of look through as much as I could. Does it seem credible what they talk about? Do these people seem to know a lot about it? Where were they talking? Is that a credible location kind of thing? So I don't express to know everything. So if some of you are watching and you disagree with some of the take, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm someone who's open to changing my mind on things. I've been wrong in the past, so I'm not one of those that's so set in my stances that I can't listen to other sides to potentially change my perspective on things. So here first, before I get into that, I want to share two posts because they're relevant to Saskatchewan. One of them is here. CKO 650 CKOM said Saskatoon Fire Department has had to deal with 23 more overdoses in the city between 7 a.m. Friday and 7 a.m. on Saturday after responding to 25 overdose on February 25th and 26th, and 20 more overdose reported by other organizations. I'm just going to click here to see what else it says. At least 23. So, which means we've had that in the past where there'd be tainted supplies of things, where there'd be a lot more deaths than usual. And so it seems like right now that's happening a lot in Saskatoon. So this would be a great time to have conversation with your teens, your kids about the dangers of taking something that you don't know what's in it. Anyways, Pierre weighed in on it. 23 overdose in 24 hours, 48 in the past week alone in one Canadian city. Mass fentanyl manufacturers and traffickers are poisoning and killing people. Common sense conservative will treat them like the mass murderers they are with life sentence. So he uses this opportunity to talk about one of their platforms. But it's interesting that this is happening when you have the federal government saying we're fighting on fentanyl. It's not that big of a problem. It's more of a problem in the US. And yet you have numbers like that. I really hope there's a huge crackdown on fentanyl production in Canada. And I'm hoping to see that. Again, the tariffs are being threatened for tomorrow unless Canada does something. The 25% tariffs are coming tomorrow. Last tweet by Donald Trump about it was basically get a hold of this fentanyl crisis. The border, they're seeing it in the US as well. Some of it's coming from Canada. Um, anyways, so that's still happening. Another thing I want to that while I was looking to see what Pierre had to say about the Ukraine Russia war and the thing that just happened last week in the White House was Pierre Poilievre. I saw this post, so I wanted to share it because I think this is a good move. Common sense conservatives will axe the GST on new homes to save you up to $50,000. Will also push provinces to remove their sales tax from new home sales, which would save you tens of thousands of dollars on top of that. I think that's actually a really good move to make home buying more affordable. But what I would like to see is even seeing maybe that tax removed from all homes purchases. That's usually one of the big things. Sorry, this is not to do with the Ukraine war, but now let's talk about, you know what? I was thinking about it. I should probably show you what happened last week. I'm going to grab a video quickly here of why everyone's talking about the Ukraine Russia war. There was supposed to be a signed deal last week between Ukraine and the US. President Vladimir Zelensky, went to the White House, and there was a massive blowout in the White House. Let's see if I can just bring it up quickly here. Zelensky. I played it on my show on Friday. It had just happened. Let's see. Might as well play parts of it again. And I went and watched the rest as well. So there was more. This is the 7-minute one. I don't really want to play the 7-minute one. There was like a 40-minute one, which I did watch. And it's funny. I found that Trump and JD Vance were extremely patient up until the point where they lost their patients. So there was a lot of things that Zelensky was saying and doing, almost like egging them on. Here. I'll play parts of it. Let's see, because it's 7 minutes. I don't want to play the whole thing. Give me a second. I realize I didn't add the share screen. There you go. We'll watch some of it because we're going to be talking about this. We might as well show some of it. There you go.
Tyle nienawiści w sobie, rozumiem to, ale rozumiem, że też druga strona nie
Oh, that's not
kocha
English.
go.
Let's see.
Słowa prezydenta
Oh, that. Sorry, this is not English. Let's see if I can find one. You would think it'd be easy to find here. Media, maybe. Zelensky. JD. Here, let's just search. Let's see if that comes up more. This one's short. Come on. Okay, here's one of them. It's only 2 minutes long. David asks, how are the finches? Good, except that we have a cat that snuck in. It's an outdoor cat, snuck into the house and I couldn't find it. It was like hiding under the couches. So I was afraid it was going to go after the finches that were upstairs. And so I brought them downstairs and they have 5. The second pair of finches have 5 eggs. And I was afraid the cat was going to terrorize them. So I brought the whole cage downstairs on top of the other cage. Well, because it was a new environment and they could hear the other birds, they stopped sitting on the eggs. So now I think I have 5 eggs that aren't maturing. Yeah. So David says it was a 52-minute meeting. We only saw the last 10. In the first 42, Z was eye rolling, shoulder shrugging, hand waving. Yeah, he was extremely disrespectful. So when JD Vance brought it up, that was after it had been happening for a really long time. So, but anyways, I'll play this one here. It's basically shows the explosion, which I showed on my show on Friday.
Of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr.
are not
President,
strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know that.
bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem.
That pissed
Don't
them
tell
off.
us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
You will
good.
feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very
You
strong.
will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and
of
he
the
happens
war.
to be right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a
Mr.
good
Ra-
position.
I
You don't
was
have
in-
the cards right now. With us, you start
I'm
having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What
III.
what you're
You're
thinking about?
gambling with
What are you
World
thinking
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
It's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
wearing
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A
This
lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States
you're
of
speaking
America
about?
and the president who's trying to save your country. I'm talking about.
It's funny seeing like the whole mainstream media, all the elites, all of the people who've been making our lives difficult in the last 10 years. It's funny seeing this narrative spread. It's almost like coordinated. Now, someone said Zelensky met here. Boris Johnson was in Kiev meeting with the 2 days before this meeting. Now you got to understand the setup to this meeting, what was supposed to happen. It wasn't out of the blue that Zelensky came to the US. It's not like they didn't have a plan. They had a plan. Mark Rubio, I think that's his name, Rubio, and JD Vance had been meeting with Zelensky. They had meetings about making this deal for minerals. And a lot of people are saying, oh, the mineral deals is just to take advantage of the Ukraine. No, if they're going to spend a lot of money into a war, into protecting a country, they should get something back. All of the other people who are putting money into Ukraine, like all in Europe, they're doing it as a loan. So there's supposed to be a guarantee to eventually get it back. Now, the US didn't have any of that. Now, why do I think it's a good move? It's a good business move. If the US has a deal with rare minerals in Ukraine, they have a reason to want to protect Ukraine. Not only that, it sends a strong message to Putin, hey, when you're attacking Ukraine, you're attacking us. So I honestly think this was probably one of the better ways to go about negotiating peace deal, aligning even more with Ukraine, which is what Trump was trying to do. Now, do I think this was completely undermined? Yes. I don't think Zelensky went in there ready to sign it. I think it was completely undermined before, and I'll tell you why. It's something that came up I'm actually supposed to cover it later on in the episode, but I'm just going to see if I can switch it here because I think we should cover it now. Give me a second. I'm going to go and find it. There was a deal already done for the rare minerals, but not with the US, with Europe. Here. Zelensky says he's ready to sign mineral deals and relations with US will continue. So is that a video? Let's see. Oh. Yeah, it's a video. Might as well watch it.
Так ми не робимо ніяких кроків назад.
It's a sec. I gotta switch screens to get this working here. It's in Ukrainian, but I'll read what they say at the bottom. I just gotta put the mic. I'll do the volume down.
Ми не робимо ніяких кроків назад. Це наша політика бути послідовними, незважаючи на те, що
This is our policy to be consistent regardless of what happened before we are constructive.
Якщо ми домовилися, що вона
If we agree that minerals deals with the US will be signed from our side, we are ready to sign. I honestly think the United States will be ready as well. Maybe they need to. Oh, sorry, I didn't get a chance to finish reading it. Maybe they'll need time to analyze some things. I think our relations with the US will continue. Let's see what, because this is more than relations during a certain moment. We must be open. Ukraine is not the biggest country in the world, but everyone can see how it fights for its independence and freedom. Okay, when was this? We count on the assistance from United States of America without a doubt. I think stopping such assistance will only help Putin. And because of that, I think that the United States and representatives of the civilized world Leaders of this world definitely won't help Putin. If the President of the United States of America will invite me for a constructive dialogue, I represent the interests of a country that heavily depends on support from partners. It's almost done. So, of course, I'm invited for a constructive dialogue for solving real problems. Let's see. I'm going to play this another clip video later on for serious question, real solutions, actions, and answers. I will be there out of respect for America, American people, the president, and the two parties. That's a weird thing to say. And the two parties. That's a really weird thing to say. Here. And then she says, this is the part that I found very interesting. He already signed it away before Trump was inaugurated. Starmer and EU already claimed the minerals. They just need the US to provide security for them to profit. They used us. They all did. I'm going to see if I can make this bigger here. UK-Ukraine 100-year partnership agreement. There's someone else who was talking about this. I'm going to bring it up too. Jim Ferguson wrote this. Explosives. Starmer and Zelensky just tried to play Trump. Globalist backroom deals exposed. The mask has slipped. Again, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer has exposed a major contradiction in Ukraine's so-called mineral negotiations with the United States. Just weeks before Zelensky walked into the Oval Office demanding a mineral deal from Trump, he had already signed a 100-year partnership with the UK, including a mineral clause with Keir Starmer. Starmer? How do you say his name? Am I saying it right? Keir Starmer? Globalist government. Think about that. On January 17th, Starmer and Zelensky locked in an agreement that ties Ukraine critical minerals wealth to the UK for the next century. That deal covers defense, security, energy, and infrastructure, and a special working group designed to maximize benefits from Ukraine natural resources. So why was Zelensky in Washington acting like he was negotiating in good faith with the US? Was this a real discussion or just an attempt to shake down the Trump administration while Starmer and his globalist friends sat back laughing? They thought Trump and America were fools. They just got caught. What this mean? Ukraine's leadership is playing multiple sides, signing secret long-term deals while pretending to negotiate with America. Starmer is knee-deep in this deception, using Ukraine as a bargaining chip while cozying up to the U.S. to the EU elites. Trump saw through the game and refused to be manipulated. Now the globalists are scrambling. Oh, there's a video. Might as well play it here.
Well, first off, they've got to change.
Here, just give me a sec. Can you guys see it? Yeah.
Well, first off, they've got to change the fact that on the 17th of January, the British signed an agreement with Ukraine to have exclusive rights to those deals. Kirchner, this is a battle of dueling narratives. You can go check it out. This is on the British UK website. It talks about this 100-year Ukraine and UK signed a 100-year deal over security guarantees and economic development. So what happened is that I believe President Trump and his team found out that they were being played. So this has become a set of dueling narratives. The BBC just said today there's massive protests here. Zach Andrews just said all the European leaders are behind Zelensky. We are being played. We, the United States, are trying to be signed up to a deal that we provide security guarantees to a economic development deal that Keir Starmer has already signed them up to do. So the first thing it has to do is people have to take a step back and be honest with what's really going on. And so I think what happened here, I don't know the details, it wasn't in that meeting, but Kershaw, the president was trying to play a straight line deal to sign an agreement with them over this mineral rights deal, knowing full well that the British had already signed on this 3 days before his inauguration. So where we go from here is both sides, if this is going to work, if the Europeans really want our help, they're going to have to take a step back and start being honest with the United States about what's really going on.
Interesting. I was going to cover that later on, but I think it's important for people to know. It almost makes it seem like it was all like a ruse and almost like it was pre-planned. I'm not saying that's exactly what it is, but it almost looks like that. There was I think it was a couple weeks ago too, there was a meeting where Mark Rubio and GD Vance had met with Zelensky and they had come up with something. And then shortly after that meeting, Zelensky basically said, no, we're not doing that, even though he had agreed in the meeting. I don't know if I have an example of that, but I would love to find it. But right now, when I search it, everything that comes up is what currently happened at the White House. So let's see if I can bring that up. Now, the Ukraine-Russia war is not brand new. It's been happening. Look, it happened during COVID, but it was happening before that. There's a 4-minute, 32-second video that I'm going to play that kind of explains the history of it. Robert Malone posted it, so I'll show you guys that quickly. Robert Malone said last year, Jeffrey Sachs delivered a most important history lesson at the European Union. This is why Ukraine is at war. Ask yourself who actually is the aggressor in this conflict. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Jeffrey Sachs. He has Sachs, whatever how you say it. He has a lot of ideas and views that I don't share. However, he has a lot of information on the history of this conflict, and he's been someone who's been speaking about it. What I mean by that, like he's a climate change globalist type of guy, but he knows a lot about this war. So even though I don't agree with his views on other things, he's kind of like a UN guy. I think this information is important for people to know, and it's the shortest condensed version of the history of the Ukraine-Russia war that I could find. So there's plenty of out there that says the same thing. This is just more condensed, so I'll share that with you guys.
What was Putin's intention in the war? Not the propaganda that's written about this. Oh, that they failed and he was going to take over Ukraine. The idea was to keep NATO, and what is NATO? It's the United States, off of Russia's border. No more, no less. When the Soviet Union ended in 1991, and an agreement was made that NATO will not move 1 inch eastward. Now, what happened after 1991, the United States decided there would be no end to eastward enlargement of NATO. And the decision was taken formally in 1994. When President Clinton signed off on NATO enlargement to the east, all the way to Ukraine and into Georgia. So the NATO enlargement, as you know, started in 1999 with Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic. And Russia was extremely unhappy about it, but these were countries still far from the border. So the next round of NATO enlargement came in 2004. With the 3 Baltic states, Romania, Bulgaria, Slovenia, and Slovakia. At this point, Russia was pretty damn upset. So as everybody recalls, in 2007, President Putin said, stop. enough. And of course, what that meant
gonna
was in
make it go
2008, the
faster.
United States jammed down Europe's throat, enlargement of NATO to Ukraine and to Georgia. This is right up against Russia. And Russia protested because if Russia decided to have a military base on the Rio Grande or the Canadian border, not only would the United States freak out, we'd have war within about 10 minutes. And a month later, a war broke out. That gets Georgia destroyed. And starting in 2010, the U.S. put in Aegis missile systems in Poland and then in Romania. And Russia doesn't like that. In 2010, Viktor Yanukovych was elected on the platform of neutrality. Russia had no territorial interests or designs in Ukraine at all. What Russia was negotiating was a 25-year lease for Sevastopol naval base. That's it. Not for Crimea, not for the Donbass, nothing. In 2014, the U.S. worked actively to overthrow Yanukovych. Everybody knows the phone call by my Columbia University colleague, Victoria Nuland, and the U.S. Ambassador, Peter Piot. Listen to it. It's fascinating.
I don't think Cleach should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea. I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience, and, fuck the EU.
No, exactly. And I think we've got to do something to make.
You don't get better evidence. Then came Minsk, and especially Minsk II. It said there should be autonomy for the Russian-speaking regions in the east of Ukraine. It was supported unanimously by the UN Security Council. The United States and Ukraine decided it was not to be enforced. There were many thousands of deaths in the shelling by Ukraine in the Donbass. And one of the issues on the table in December 2021, January 2022, was, does the United States claim the right to put missile systems in Ukraine? And Blinken told Lavrov in January 2022, the United States reserves the right to put missile systems wherever it wants. So the war started. What was Putin's intention in the war? It was to force Zelensky to negotiate neutrality. And that happened within 7 days of the start of the invasion. Ukraine walked away unilaterally from a near agreement. Why? Because the United States told them to. The idea was that there would be Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, and Georgia that would deprive Russia of any international status by blocking the Black Sea. And the American senators, who are as nasty and cynical and corrupt as imaginable, say this is wonderful expenditure of our money because no Americans are dying. It's the pure proxy war. And since the U.S. talked the negotiators away from the table, about 1 million Ukrainians have died or been severely.
Interesting. I hope that's okay. I'm making it go faster because there's so much to cover and I can handle faster. So I'm hoping you guys can handle it too. Dave made the suggestion. Maria's here. Hey, Maria. I was talking about you earlier. I have regulars that come on every show. And I like having that because then it can be more of a discussion. But yeah, so that explains a lot of what was happening. There's another video here by the same guy. Is it the same time? No, this is a more newer one, I think. Give me a sec. No, it's the same place. But I think this one's important as well. So let's just share it because it kind of gives you a glimpse into what Jeffrey thinks is Trump's MO in all of this.
Trump does not want the losing hand. This is why it is more likely than not this war will end, because Trump and President Putin will agree to end the war. If Europe does all its great warmongering, it doesn't matter. The war is ending. So get it out of your system. Please tell your colleagues. It's over. And it's over because Trump doesn't want to carry a loser. That's it. It's not some great morality. He doesn't want to carry a loser. This is a loser. The one that will be saved by the negotiations taking place right now is Ukraine. Second is Europe. Trump does not.
Interesting. Now here, I have a few more videos where they say about this very similar things, but it gives you a glimpse into what we're dealing with.
This is a war that should have never happened. It's a war that Russians tried repeatedly to settle on terms that were very, very beneficial to Ukraine and us. The major thing they wanted was for us to keep NATO out of the Ukraine. The big military contractors want to add new countries to NATO all the time. Why? Because then that country has to conform its military purchases to NATO weapon specifications, which means certain companies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, and Lockheed get a trapped market. March of 2022.
Okay, so I just want to.
We committed.
So basically, if these countries join NATO, they have to conform to NATO specification, which means they have to buy all of these war things And who profits from that? He just listed the companies who provide all of the war material. Same thing with demanding Canada ups its spending. Where does that go? All these war, I guess, suppliers, and where are they mostly out of? The US.
$113 billion. Just to give you an example, we could have built a home for almost every homeless person in this country. We then committed another $24 billion since then, 2 months ago, and now President Biden's asking for another $60 billion. But the big, big expenses are going to come after the war, when we have to rebuild all the things that we destroyed. Mitch McConnell was asked, can we really afford to spend $113 billion to Ukraine? He said, don't worry. It's not really going to Ukraine.
It's going to American defense manufacturers.
So he just admitted it's a money laundering scheme. And who do you think owns every one of those companies? BlackRock. So Tim Scott, during the Republican debate, said, don't worry. It's not a gift to Ukraine. It's a loan. So raise your hand if you think that that loan is ever getting paid back. Yeah, of course it's not. So why do they call it a loan? Because if they call it a loan, they can impose loan conditions. And what are the loan conditions that we impose on? Number one, an extreme austerity program. So that if you're poor in Ukraine, you're going to be poor forever. Number two, most important, Ukraine has to put all of its government-owned assets up for sale to multinational corporations, including all of its agricultural land, the biggest single asset in Europe. In Ukraine, there's been 1,000 years of war fought over that land. It's the richest farmland in the world. It's the breadbasket of Europe. 500,000 kids almost, Ukrainians, have died to keep that land as part of Ukraine. They almost certainly didn't know about this loan condition. They've already sold 30% of it. The buyers were DuPont, Cargill, and Monsanto. Who do you think owns all of those companies? Yeah, BlackRock. And then in December, President Biden gave out the contract to rebuild Ukraine. And who do you think got that contract? BlackRock. So they're doing this right in front of us. They don't even care that we know anymore, because they know that they can get away with it. And how do they know that? Because they have a strategy. And that strategy is an old strategy, which is they keep us at war with each other. They keep us hating on each other. They keep the Republicans and Democrats fighting each other, and black against white, and all these divisions that they sow.
That was one of the most eye-opening video that I saw, explaining a lot of what happens. I'm going to share this tweet. Waltz. This is Waltz, I think, is this guy that's getting interviewed here. Waltz tells what happened after the fight in the Oval Office. The Ukrainian team was in tears, but Zelensky stayed argumentative. After the press left, you and Rubio told Zelensky he should leave the White House. Waltz, we had a meeting and advised the president that after... Sorry, I lost it here. That after that insult in the Oval Office, he shouldn't engage further. We told Zelensky and his team to be clear, this was not an ambush. That claim is categorically false. Oh, I want to kind of talk about, too, the fact that there was already a rare mineral deals with the UK. The other guy in one of the videos that I played earlier that was talking about that in one of the news exchange, he said that he thinks Trump found out about that during the meeting, or I don't think Trump knew about it before, because it doesn't fit him. If he knew about it before, he would have canceled that meeting. I don't think they knew. So I just want to say that I don't agree with that guy's idea of what went on. But anyways, this is just a bit of a video what happened after that meeting. Let's see if I'll make it bigger here. I've got to switch screens because you guys can't hear it unless I use the other screen, right? Let me know if I ever play a video and it's not working for the sound.
Look, we had a meeting after that exchange, after the press was asked to leave, and we advised the president, pretty much unanimously advised the president that after that insult in the Oval Office, we just do not see how that could move forward, that any further engagement would only go backwards.
Sorry.
from this moment on. And that's what we walked over and told President Zelensky and his team. And let me just talk something very quickly, that this was some kind of ambush. That is absolutely and categorically false. Look, we had a meeting
I think it's
after that.
Yeah. There's another video here. Let's bring it up.
Setting in the East Room. We had a beautiful setting in the East Room ready for both leaders to sign that would have bound the United States and Ukraine together economically for a generation, for critical minerals that we need, economic investment that they need. And that would have been in the heels, Charlie, of having the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who says he's ready to put boots on the ground, the president of France, Macron, who's ready to put boots on the ground, NATO Secretary General that the president had just spoke to about broader security guarantees. So this really could have been and should have been a positive moment for Ukraine. And then we go to further negotiating with the Russians, bring this war to an end, and move the world forward and stop the death and destruction. We had a beautiful setting in the
There's a longer one as well, but I won't play it. I'm trying to get through some of these things here. Oh, maybe I'll play this one here. It's a different one, but it's
wholly unacceptable.
Oh.
When you went in and explained to Zelensky that he was leaving the White House without lunch or that important signing, did he look surprised? Did he seem to recognize what had happened?
No, he didn't. Frankly, his team did. His ambassador and his advisor were practically. I mean, they were practically in tears, wanting this to move forward. But Zelensky was still argumentative. And finally, what I said, look, Mr. President, time is not on your side here. Time is not on your side on the battlefield. Time is not on your side in terms of the world situation. And most importantly, U.S. aid and the taxpayers' tolerance is not unlimited. So, I think he is used to hearing, actually, I know he is used to hearing that as long as it takes, as much as it takes, blank check, and the United States really doesn't have much of a say, you can determine the outcome of all of this. That's what he heard for years from Biden and his team, and he has not gotten the memo that this is a new sheriff in town, this is a new president, and we are determined to take a new approach towards peace.
A truly astonishing obliviousness to the real politics on the ground. Colonel Mike Waltz, thank you so much for joining us.
I think he did his country a true disservice. Truly. And who is opposed to peace? Yeah. If you disagree with how we're going to end the war, fine, but you do that behind closed doors, not the way this was done. It was wholly unacceptable.
I agree. Here, just one second. I have another video here I'm going to bring up. This is what someone else had.
I understand that people have their own personal
kind of different perspective from all over. But here, I'll let you watch this one.
Understand that people have their own personal view of Trump and may not like him, and I mean I don't see him as all the things that you called him. I actually think there are millions in Europe that are absolutely delighted and relieved that he won the election, and as a strong leader can highlight all the failings of our weak liberal global order that has completely failed its citizens, failed to make Europe safe, failed European economies. We're shrinking. We're in terminal decline at the moment, and we need to take a leaf out of Trump's book, who is boosting growth with lower taxes, smaller state, deporting illegal immigrants, deporting criminals, all the things any normal state should be doing, but our countries are not. So people are welcoming his arrival. I think his presence here in London will give people hope that our country can have a similar change, fingers crossed. And I think it is money well worth spent. The amount of money that is wasted by our government on ridiculous DEI projects, woke projects, you've got carbon capture projects that don't work, costing billions. The billions that Keir wants to send off to Chagos Islands for the surrender of our territory, 9 billion is suggested. All this money should be spent on improving British lives, British economy, and our interests. And I think that's what Trump's visit will do. I understand.
So she said something. So she basically said that Trump was heading to London. I haven't seen any updates of that. Now, I want to talk about a tweet by Pierre Poilievre here. I'm just trying to bring it up. What was Pierre Poilievre's response to the fiasco at the White House? He posted this the same day. As leader of Canada's Common Sense Conservative, I have always been clear we stand with Ukraine in its defense against Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion. I also firmly believe that the future of Ukraine must be determined by the Ukrainian people. Conservatives will always stand on the side of freedom and democracy. This was a really interesting tweet. I actually read it a couple of times. Sorry, I just realizing. I don't think you guys see the full screen, do you? No. Here, I'll move this over. Oh, yeah, you do. There you go. He says, I also firmly believe that the future of Ukraine must be determined by the Ukrainian people. It's almost like he's calling for an election in his tweet. Now, it's not like super like blatant, but if Trump pays attention to what, I don't know if he does, but if he was to pay attention, this kind of language is the same thing that JD Vance and Trump has been calling for. JD Vance has said, why haven't you had an election? It's something a lot of conservative in the US have been demanding as well. Now, I don't think everyone understands the situation when it comes to the election in the Ukraine. However, this is something that, oh shoot, did I close it by mistake? Here, I might have. Oh, right here. Okay, I'll share this video. I'm gonna make it 1.5 times faster too. If it's too fast for you guys, let me know. I'm just trying to save some of your time here. I'll do 1.25.
Here is something that the political establishment and propaganda media don't want you to know. Ukraine's President Zelensky has just banned yet another political opposition party, one that questioned his legitimacy as president, and used Ukraine's Department of Justice to mandate the seizure of this party's members' assets. Now, this is just the latest of Zelensky's actions to do this sort of thing. He began banning major political opposition parties in 2022, when he also started banning TV channels that were associated with his political opponents. And he took over total control of Ukraine's largest television networks, now controlled by their government. Zelensky's presidential term ended on May 20th. He canceled elections in the name of martial law, suspending Ukraine's constitution so that he could stay in power. Now, defenders of Zelensky will say, hey, Ukraine is in the middle of a war. They can't have elections. Just stop for a moment and think, if we accept that excuse or criteria for suspending the constitution and canceling elections, then we should presume that leaders in our own country and our own establishment media will also use this same excuse and rationale when they suspend our constitution and our elections, since we too are at war with Russia and China. If you think this sounds crazy, look at what's already going on. They've already started conditioning us to accept a dictatorship by rationalizing their own use of our Department of Justice to target President Trump and other political enemies in their efforts to stay in power.
So she makes a really valid point. If they can stop the election for that, what else can they stop the election for? In the US, maybe. Now, there was a video, I won't play it because it's kind of long, but Gutfield there was a few people talking about it, what happened at the White House, but I'll just show it to you guys. So anyways, if you want to go watch it, but I'm running out of time, so I'm trying to get through this. There's a lot to cover. Now, Elon Musk made a post that I think is extremely vivid picture of what the war in Ukraine, or any war for that matter, is. You have the kings and the queens making all the decisions, but it's all the people of that country dying. Anyway, so I thought that was like kind of a pointy post. Now, I'm going to play a video here of Nikki Haley. So Nikki Haley ran for president in the primaries against Trump. She's kind of seen more as a rhino. So rhino, which stands for Republican in name only. So she had some things to say. I'll share it with you guys, and then I'll share what Grok told me, because I wanted to fact check some of the stuff that she had said, because I hadn't seen evidence of what she said. So I'll share that one with you guys.
The reason we care about Ukraine, and I'll be the first one to say, I don't think we should give any country, friend or foe, cash, because you can't follow it and you can't hold it accountable. I don't think we need to put troops on the ground in Ukraine, and Ukraine doesn't want them because they want to be able to win it themselves. But what I saw at the United Nations, terrorists, thugs, and dictators always tell us what they're going to do. They're amazingly transparent. Hamas said they were going to go into Israel. They did. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. It happened. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. We watched it. China said Taiwan is next. We better believe it. Russia said once they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. Those are NATO countries. That puts America at war. This is about preventing war. It's always been about preventing war. My husband is a combat veteran. He's deployed now. The last thing I want him or any of his military brothers and sisters to do is to go to war. But to avoid going to war, you have to prevent it. And just to support Ukraine, it only costs 3.5% of our defense budget. That's it. The Europeans have paid more, and they should. It's in their neighborhood. But this is about preventing war. And we have to make sure that we do everything we can to keep Americans safe and to keep our national security safe.
She had an interesting choice of words. This one, I'm just going to replay it.
They did. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. It happened. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. We watched it.
We watched it. That's a weird, strange choice of words. I'm not saying that Russia didn't invade Ukraine. They did. But when I was trained to profile and interview sex offenders, one of the things we're taught about is verbal slips, or choices of like word choices that people have. And sometimes in the word choice, it can cause a verbal slip. Why did she say we watched it? Like almost like it's a play that occurred. That's like a really interesting, like if I was like in an interview room with like an offender, I would have taken that choice of word and put it in my back pocket to bring it back up later. What do you mean we watched it? Like that's such a weird choice of word, isn't it? But anyways, I want to fact check some of the stuff she said. I'm just going to switch screens here. I asked Grok because she says that they're going to go after Poland next and the Baltic. So she said that in her interview. And so I asked Grok, has Putin said he would invade Poland after Ukraine? Here, I'll see if I can share it with you guys. Oh, you can't see the whole thing. Let's see if I minimize this screen. You might be able to read it. It might not. There you go. There's no credible direct evidence that Putin has explicitly said he would invade Poland after Ukraine, at least not in the way it's sometimes framed in heated discussion. The guy's rhetoric is often loaded with historical grievances and vague threats, but pinning down a clear "I will invade Poland next" statement is tricky. For instance, in early 2024, during a lengthy interview with Tucker Carlson, Putin claimed Russia had no interest in invading Poland or Latvia unless provoked, calling such ideas threat mongering. That's what he said. That said, he's also made comments about Poland's historical role in conflict that some interpret as a veiled warning, like blaming Poland for parts of World War II in a way that raises eyebrows. On the flip side, plenty of Russian officials and state media figures have thrown around aggressive language. A lawmaker like Alexei Zuravlyov, sorry for butchering that name, has suggested Poland could be next, but that's not Putin himself. And those statements often get amplified without context. Poland's government and NATO allies take these noises seriously, especially since Russia's action in Ukraine have shattered trust. Putin also said he wouldn't invade Ukraine days before he did back in 2022, so skepticism towards this public denial runs deep. And then I asked, Nikki Haley is the one who said it. She said Poland and the Baltics are next. And then it kind of mentions when she said it. However, there's no record of Putin directly saying Poland and the Baltic are next in those exact words. Haley's comments seem to be her interpretation and a rhetorical escalation of Russia's broader action and the aggressive chatter from some Kremlin-aligned figures like Medvedev and state media pundits who've made threatening noise about NATO countries. It's elite, but not entirely baseless given the context of Russian rhetoric and history. What do you think about her take on this? It's kind of cool that Grok kind of asks you questions too, so you can it almost makes it seem like a conversation. So, and then I asked, what was Putin's response to the White House fiasco between JD Trump and Zelensky last week? And it says there's no direct verified statement from Putin himself specifically addressing the recent White House meeting between Trump, JD Vance, and Zelensky that I can point to. Sorry, my phone keeps ringing and beeping, and I also realize I have an alarm I need to shut off here. It's my reminder to go pick up James from school, but he doesn't have school today. So I just have it every day so I don't forget. The Kremlin tends to play these moments strategically, often letting proxies or state media speak first to gauge reaction before Putin weighs in, if he does at all. That said, the broader Russian response through state-controlled outlets and officials has been predictably opportunistic. They framed the whole debacle as a win for Moscow, highlighting the friction between the US and Ukraine as evidence of a crumbling Western alliance. Now, I want to talk about something that I've noticed. We notice, kind of on social media, even just in the general world, what mainstream media is perpetuating constantly. We notice there's themes. They'll come up with certain things and then they'll talk about it for a while and then it'll switch over to something else. But it almost seems like that narrative or brainwashing narrative continues. So I'm just fixing the Twitter so I can go back to the posts and stuff. One of the things that I wanted to know, one of the things that I realize is we've very much been constantly drilled Putin is an evil guy. And I do believe he is an evil guy. I was talking to Jonathan last night about it. I think he's what would be considered a psychopath, just doesn't have empathy, doesn't have emotion. It wouldn't shock me if he was to just end the life of someone and it not bother him at all. I don't think he's got a big heart for his people or does what he does because he actually cares personally about specific people in his country. I just don't think he's capable of that. I think he's cold, calculated, but he has a set of standards. Psychopaths, not all psychopaths completely do evil and become mass murderers. Maybe he is. I don't know. But just the fact of war doesn't necessarily mean he's a mass murderer, but maybe he is. But one thing that if you go based on that profile, you can kind of wonder, okay, what's his motivation? I don't think he's like a narcissist, as in he's not looking for admiration. He doesn't seek that out. I think he's just a psychopath. And I'm going to read to you what that means, because I was talking to Jonathan. I'm like, what's the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath? And there is a difference. Here, let's see. I got to go with my history. And some narcissists can be psychopaths or sociopaths. Usually it's sociopath. They can kind of overlap, but a psychopath is born, not made. More likely to have genetic basis, cold and calculating, lacks empathy but can fake emotions well, manipulative and charming, often intelligent, strategic, and able to blend into society, low emotional reactivity, rarely experiences guilt or fear, planned behavior, more controlled, calculated, organized in their action, premeditated, often successful in career, can hold high status jobs, CEOs, lawyers, surgeons. Psychopaths are a bit different. They're made, not born, more influenced by childhood trauma and environment, impulsive and reckless, difficult to maintain relationship, limited empathy, disorganized behavior, more easily detected, has trouble blending into. So I don't think he's a sociopath. But with that, I think he's motivated by different things. Wants to lead his country in the best way he thinks it should be led. Look, I'm not saying that I agree with his mindset on how that should happen. But now, so it's clear there's been a painting of what we should think about Putin. And that's been happening for a long time. And if you notice, it's been happening in the US. They try to demonize Trump by linking him to like the Russia collusion hoax, all of that. It turns out it wasn't Trump that was working with Russia, but instead the Democrat Party. So Biden, his son had shady dealing in Ukraine. Same thing with the Clinton. Turns out she was the one that was colluding with Russia. There's a lot of sketchy things. So I wanted to know, okay, what did they used to say about Putin before the war, before this started? What was the narrative that other world leaders had? And I found some, and surprisingly enough, it's being talked about right now. So I'm going to play some of those videos for you guys. I'm just going to have to kind of switch up the screen here. So this Clinton had to say, this would have been in 2013. I think it's important. It gives us a perspective into where the world is or was back then.
Look, Mr. Putin he's very smart.
Well, you know him better than most people.
Yeah, I do.
What was he like behind closed doors, away from the sort of the public utterances?
Smart and remarkably, we had a really good, blunt relationship.
How blunt?
Brutally blunt.
Ever like fisticuffs?
No, but I think the right strategy most of the time but it's frustrating to people in your line of work. You should be brutally honest with people in private. And then if you want them to help you, try to avoid embarrassing them in public.
Right.
Now, sometimes they do things which make it impossible for you to keep quiet. But by and large, I found all the people I dealt with appreciated it if I told them the truth, how I honestly felt and what our interests were and what our objectives were. And they also appreciated it when I didn't kick them around in public for as long as I couldn't kick them around. So, that's my experience. And
did Putin ever renege on a personal agreement he made to you?
He did not.
So behind closed doors, he could be trusted?
He kept his word in all the deals we made.
So that was Clinton. Let's see who else here. Give me a sec. I've got to find the right screen. This was another video that shows what a lot of people had to say about Vladimir Putin.
Congratulate President Putin for being the only person that caught a fish today.
So you know Vladimir Putin. You think he's a killer?
Mm-hmm. I do.
I like Putin. He likes me. We get along.
And I looked the man in the eye. I found him to be very straightforward and trustworthy. We had a very good dialogue. I was able to get a sense of his soul. A lot of people never really dreamt that an American president and a Russian president could have established the friendship that we had. We were enemies for a long period of time. When I was in high school, Russia was an enemy. Now the high school students can know Russia is a friend.
I don't have a bad personal relationship with Putin. When we have conversations, they're candid, they're blunt. I know the press likes to focus on body language, and he's got that kind of slouch, looking like the bored kid in the back of the classroom. But the truth is that when we're in conversations together, oftentimes it's very productive.
I respect Putin. He's a strong leader, I can tell you that, unlike what we have.
President Putin called me up very nicely to congratulate me on the win of the election.
Putin's a killer. A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why you think our country's so innocent?
I like Putin. He likes me. You know, we get along. Isn't it? Wouldn't you say it's smart to get along? Okay, smart.
So what specifically will you do differently to change Vladimir Putin's behavior?
Well, first of all, there's no guarantee you can change a person's behavior or the behavior of his country. Autocrats have enormous power. They don't have to answer to a public.
Why do you think he hasn't changed his behavior in spite of everything the U.S. has done to this point?
He's Vladimir Putin.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
I'm just I want to I searched a word that I didn't know what the meaning was. Autocrat. So Biden called him an autocrat. Is a ruler or a leader who has absolute power and control over a country or organization, often without being held accountable by laws, a constitution, or democratic institution. Autocrats typically suppress opposition, limit freedoms, and govern without checks and balances. So an example of autocrat in history would be Napoleon Bonaparte, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler. Modern example, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping. And okay. So I was kind of curious about that. But it's interesting to hear what they had to say so many years ago. And another video that's popping up that people were playing is what Trump was warning about 7 years ago. And I'll play this one here.
And Trump did it again in September when he went to the UN and said something about Germany that was so detached from reality, even the German delegation couldn't help but laugh at him.
Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment of expansionist foreign powers.
Not only are these dudes laughing, but look at this lady's face. She doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and she's from a country where this is a real word. And Trump did it again in September when he went to the UN and said something about Germany that was so detached from reality, even the German delegation couldn't help but laugh at him.
Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are committed to maintaining our independence from the encroachment.
Am I playing that again? Yeah, I am. It's kind of interesting. Sorry, I got distracted by the comments. It's interesting, though. They all made fun of him, and what happened? Exactly that. What is the other one? Yeah, here's another one. Trump's beast. I won't play this one because it's getting long here. And I'll get to some of the comments here. Yeah. Canada, Saskabush Jima says, Canada is very corrupt and none of the politicians here will do anything. Keval Valm says, and we are trusting what Clinton and Bush, Obama say, or the narrative they push. I'm just showing the perspective of what was being said back then compared to now. Now, if you say anything positive or even anything like, oh, Putin is super smart. He's strategic. Like you're being accused like of siding with Putin in this war. The same way, like if you said, hey, if you started asking questions about COVID, automatically you'd be called a COVID denier, or it's the same kind of thing. We should be able to have these conversations. We should be able to talk about the past, the current, the history of everything. We should be able to talk about why would Putin want to invade? That question should be on the top of everyone's mind, and not just assume, oh, it's because he's like a warmonger who just wants to kill everyone. Like, if you want to stop a war, you got to figure out what the reasons are to begin with, and what have they said is the reason that they're doing the war to begin with. Like, for example, Hamas, they've said why they're doing the war. They want to eliminate all Jews. They've been very upfront with that. What has Putin said about this war? He doesn't want NATO to encroach even further. He's concerned about that. He's concerned about basically that exact thing, about U.S. bases being built right next to his country. Like, he said those things. And yeah, I was talking about, I was also with my husband when we were going through like sociopath versus psychopath. We kind of were evaluating, well, does Trump fit in that category? And I told Jonathan, I don't think Trump fits in the sociopath category, but I do think he fits in the narcissistic category, because he wants like to be told how good of a job, like he wants to get that. He wants that recognition for the work that he does. And so he would fit more in the narcissistic category than a psychopath or sociopath. This German guy laughing is the same one that was crying at the security summit a couple weeks ago after JD's speech. Oh, really? And then David says, Obama started all the mess the West is in now, yet he is laughed at as some hero. My sister loves Obama and has TDS backwards. And David, too, is Ukrainian, so I saw that earlier in a comment he made. I'm going to see if I can find it. Oh, there's a lot. Oh my gosh, you guys are talking so much. I missed a lot of it. Nord Stream was blown up with US backing, and they tried to tell us that our US did it. That did not fly. They have the tap at their end. All they had to do was turn it to the off position. Yeah, David says, yep, I'm Ukrainian. Let's see what else I've got here. Now, there's another video here. But he's saying in a different language, so I'm just going to read it out for you guys. It's 33 seconds long. So this is Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk speaking before flying to London for today's Ukraine emergency summit. 500 million Europeans are asking for 300 million Americans to defend them against 140 million Russians. Europe today lacks the belief that we are truly a global power. That's really interesting. And I have a screen as well that talks about NATO. I've just got to find it here. Give me a second. So we understand what I don't want to end up closing screens. Not there. What did I merge them together? I did. Okay. Here you go. I've got to make it a bit smaller. I moved some stuff around, so there you go. NATO working for peace, security, and freedom for 1 billion people. Official Twitter account of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So that North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that's what it stands for. Now, this video of, sorry, I just realized there's another screen. There's no sound, so I'm just going to play it so you get to see. Actually, I'll make it bigger so you guys can see more, all the countries and what it means. It's light blue, it's Partnership for Peace. So the dark individual partnership, the dark is when they become NATO. Interesting. What is this here? Do you guys know this little country? If this was something they were concerned about, I could see that would be a reason they would want to start war. Like common sense would make you kind of see how that would be possible, right? Maria says, an agreement with Russia years ago to not move NATO further east was signed. It was broken maybe by Clinton. Not 100% sure on that. I think when I showed a video earlier, it talked about that. But here's another a graphic that I think is quite something here. I'll share it. I'm just realizing it's not doing it properly here. Let's see. Can you guys see that? Yeah. There you go. I'll just move it over. So this is the NATO defense spending. It's 1.3 trillion in 2023. This is how much the US spends. This is how much every other country spends. Where's Canada in here? Oh, right there. There's a line right there. Imagine what will happen if the US pulls out of NATO. That might happen. Now, this was Keir Starmer. What? How do you say? Is it Keir Starmer? Am I saying it properly? His response. Increasing to the fiasco at the White House, increasing defense spending will bolster our national security and help to put more money in people's pockets. By helping smaller businesses access this investment, we're opening up more opportunity for good, skilled job-making communities across the UK better off. I don't know how anyone in the UK can read this and believe this. Like it's a classic example. If you say it over and over again, people will believe it. Increasing defense spending will bolster our national security and help put more money in people's pocket. Help put more money in people's pocket? Are you for real? Like, how are people not like, well, they are destroying it. And I have to state the hypocrisy in this, these statements. He's got another one here where he's saying it's not enough. Here, where is it? He basically said, we're going to help you protect Ukraine's borders. You won't even protect your own borders. How are you going to help protect Ukraine's border? How about you stop the massive amount of immigration that's coming into the UK that's completely destroying your country? Oh, gaslighting supreme cure. Yes. He does the exact same thing as Trudeau. It's like It's like they've all been handpicked by the WEF to do massive gaslighting into all of these countries. Like, I don't know how anyone in the UK can read that and be like, oh, I'm going to have more money in my pocket because we're going to start spending more on defense of Ukraine, of all things. Like, we're going to start giving Ukraine all this defense money, but that's going to make you more richer. Like, the gaslighting is just insane. Huh. It's unreal. I'm just going back to see what else I got here. And then there was an exchange where Nigel Farage asks Keir Starmer in the U.S. minerals deals with Ukraine, is the U.S. deal with Ukraine enough of a security guarantee? And Starmer says it's not enough on its own. But can I just remind him that Russia is the aggressor? Zelensky is a war leader whose country has been invaded, and we should all be supporting him, not fawning over him. And then Kramer's agreeing with Keir's statement. I'm just looking here. And then someone's asking, why isn't Starmer pushing for the UK to be included in the minerals deals to extract some of the billions we have spent on Ukraine? He always fails to put Britain first. So some of these people probably didn't see there already is a deal. There's another interesting tweet that I saw. If Keir Starmer cared as much for our borders as he does Ukraine, we would be safe. Funny how suddenly he and Rochelle Reeves MP can find billions more for a foreign war. The Russians who dominate the battlefield have stated that there can be no NATO armies in Ukraine, however flagged. The Americans have stated they will not authorize or backstop any such deployment. Ergo, any British forces inserted into Ukraine will be belligerents. Keir Starmer intends to risk our complete annihilation, and some of you are supporting that. There was another tweet that I thought was really interesting that gives you kind of a perspective, but I'm trying to find it. This one. Russia's so weak they can't beat Ukraine. Also, if we don't stop Russia now, they're going to fight all of NATO and take over Europe. Amazing how these two statements are allowed to exist at the same time. That was an interesting tweet. Now, this video is the same video. Remember earlier I said there was a video, someone asked where that video was taken. This post here, I'll share the post quickly. Gunther says, Zelensky confirms that the only way he plans to resign is if Ukraine is accepted into NATO. We need to leave NATO. This is an almost a certain path to large-scale conflict. I don't think America should be involved at all. That's the opinion of Gunther. So I'm going to play this video and see what he says. This was on Sky News. Let's see.
Communication with the administration since the Oval. Has there been any communication with the administration since the Oval Office meeting? Have they reached out to you? And separately, you talked about resignation a few days ago. How are you thinking about elections?
Yeah. Комунікації є.
There is communication.
Не на моєму рівні.
Not on my level.
Да.
Yes.
А що стосується
As regards
піти з посади,
resignation, my resignation.
якщо мене міняти,
If
я можу постати.
if I'm to be changed, then I'll hear how can I put it?
Що зараз відбувається з підтримкою? Міняти мене
With
просто
what's happening
це буде непросто.
with the support to change me, it will not be easy because it is not enough to simply hold elections. You would need to prevent me from participating in the election, and it will be a bit more difficult. So they'll have to negotiate with me. And I said that I'm exchanging it for NATO membership. And then it means that I fulfilled my mission. There is NATO. It means I've fulfilled my mission. Although, honestly, it looks like the people, and I'll not be calling their posts, naming their posts, but the citizens of other countries are telling Ukrainians which president they should have, especially if these people occupy official posts. It seems to me a bit undemocratic and unconstructive. We are speaking about the values, and it definitely looks not very democratic. Although I'm openly saying maybe it is a solution for Putin, for everybody. If I'm not that flexible as they say, I'm exchanging it for NATO.
Can I just ask, you alluded to citizens of other nations. I mean, since the incident, Senator Lindsey Graham said that perhaps you should consider resigning. Speaker Mike Johnson today said that maybe you should consider resigning. Is your attitude it's not their business?
Lindsey Graham is a very good guy, very nice. And speaking who must be the president and whether I shall resign, I can give him the citizenship of Ukraine. He will become the citizen of our country, and then his voice will start to gain weight, and I will hear him as a citizen of Ukraine on the topic of who must be the president. But Lindsey represents the party that fights for democratic values, and anyway, the president of Ukraine will have to be chosen not at home, at Lindsey Graham's home, but in Ukraine.
Interesting. So basically, he says, I'll only resign if we join NATO. And if we join NATO, I will have done everything that I needed to do. That's interesting. Did he just like play his cards like a little too soon? And someone said, David, who's Ukrainian, says, Russia will never accept NATO Ukraine. This is just pushing for world conflict. Do they have a death wish for us? Seems so. Susan, I don't know who you're talking about. I don't see anyone saying anything about that you would share slimy Epstein bill as a source is not good. I don't know who Epstein bill is as a source. Maybe you can clarify. Maria says Lindsey Graham is a rhino. So Lindsey Graham actually after the meetings had some harsh word for Zelensky. Let's see what he had to say. I was shocked by that. Here. Lindsey Graham. Let's see if we can bring it up. Oh, here it is. It's 23 seconds. That's not
somebody. President Trump was in a very good mood last night. Somebody asked me, am I embarrassed about Trump? I have never been more proud of the president. I was very proud of J.D. Vance standing up for our country. We want to be helpful. What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again. President Trump was in a very good mood.
Anyways, this shocked me, yeah, because he's always been like worshiping Zelensky. Graham flip-flop like a fish out of water, Maria says. So someone says Lindsey Graham is a rhino, in my opinion. Someone else had said something. Lorraine Stewart says Graham knows when to bail. I think Sharon says, I think NATO has a death wish. To be honest, I'm almost wondering, are they looking for World War III? Like, I'm starting to question if that's the goal of some of these people. No, this is another video. I'll share the post quick. Mark Nixon. If you guys don't follow him already, I highly recommend you do. He's a Canadian content creator. He does a really good job. Does this sound like someone that wants peace? Zelensky wants to join NATO so that Canada, US sends troop to fight in Ukraine. Canada needs to make it clear we will never send our sons and daughters to fight in Ukraine. But here's the video. I've just got to switch screens again.
U.S. will have to send their sons and daughters exactly the same way as we are sending their sons and daughters to war. And they will have to fight because it's nature that we're talking about. And they will be dying, God forbid, because it's a horrible thing.
What are your thoughts? What are Canadians' thoughts on this? Are you willing to send your sons and daughters for this war? I'm not. Jonathan had a post he shared with me yesterday. He says, I'm trying to remember how it was worded. I won't go to war to defend another country's freedom, but I will go to war to defend the freedom of my sons and daughter from being forced to go to war. Something like that. I can't remember the tweet. Oh, wow. There's so many comments right now. Caval says this man has mansions around the world. How did a poor man get these? Global elitist payoff. One has to think back to the Bilderberg group meetings. They boasted they mind-controlled speakers. Z won't recognize or allow an election. It's about laundering an arms deal. The above was to Zelensky having mansions home. I don't know what that means. War makes elites richer. Susan says, I guess you missed all the people leaving Canada and US for freedom in Russia. I never said Russia was a free country. It's possible that two countries at war are both wrong in the way they treat their own people. Like Ukraine is being praised as this democratic free country. It is not. You obviously didn't watch the videos that I shared earlier that talked about how how Ukraine is treating the opposition parties. Just meats. Okay, it's a long I, but pronounce the TS on the end, not Z. Meats. Okay. Mites, maybe. Neil says there's no such thing as a soft nuclear war. Absolutely not. Z is threatening the world and warning. Holy evil, no meat grinder for us. UKR, you are on your own. David said that. Susan, I don't know what you're saying. Half your comments don't make sense. Go watch Countryside Acres. They will share many with you. I don't know what you're trying to say. Like half your comments make no sense. Elvis Tower says they want Russia because of their land, natural resources, minerals. I think it is the goal. Whoever supports Ukraine should got to write for them. I don't know what that means. Brenda says, exactly, money does not go to the people. It goes to the corrupt. Oh, wow, there's so many comments. I can't keep up. So is UKR the political party of Ukraine? It's Zelensky who was the poor man and like he well paid off Bilderberg boasted that they had used mind control. I've never heard of that. Maria says war is a major distraction. Ukraine is very corrupt. Lots of info on that. Oh, Countryside Acres is a Canadian family who packed up and moved to Russia. Do you guys remember like a little while ago? Was it Putin had said for conservatives to that he was going to open. I'm just going to search it. It's kind of ringing a bell here. Putin offers, I think, citizenship to conservative. Okay, yeah, there is something. Konstantin Kisin, I don't know if you follow him. He's a really good follow. Vladimir Putin just offered safe haven to those who want to escape Western liberalism. I hope as many Putin fanboy keyboard warrior as possible take up this offer. I had forgotten about that. UKR is the most corrupt country in the world, Neil says. Yeah, David says Putin offer visas for those wanting to escape our system. To be honest, I wouldn't take him up on that offer. He offered sanctuary to Canadians, but many came here because of Russia. Yeah, I do believe, like, I know a lot of people who've escaped the USSR and Russia. I'm curious of what the sentiment is currently in Russia for this war, or even just Putin itself. I'm curious if there was a polling to be done, what it would look like. The same thing, I'm curious what that polling would look like in Ukraine. And like I said earlier, just because two countries are at war, it doesn't mean that both countries can't be treating poorly their citizens. Maria says, Russia's a free country. If you mind your business, shut your pie hole. Dissenting views are not an option. So kind of similar to Ukraine. Both countries could be horrible. I don't think Ukraine is like the model country of freedom and free will and democracy. I don't believe that for a second. Now, one of the videos that I shared earlier talked about what happened at the election, how it overturned the election in Ukraine and how US had a part in that. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of evidence from declassified documents and stuff that shows exactly what the CIA did and what entities like not USAID, but USAID funds all these entities that undermine other countries' election. So we're starting to find out that the US was involved in a lot of really bad stuff. I hope that stops. David says, our US is safer, more Judeo-Christian values and system. Again, I don't necessarily think Russia is like a country I would want to move to, but I would even less want to move to Ukraine. I'm trying to see if I have any more here. I think I've got everything. But yeah, another, like that tweet that I shared earlier. They keep saying how Russia is so weak that Ukraine can beat Russia, can win, but also in the same breath saying, if we don't stop Russia now, they're going to fight all of NATO and take over Europe. Like, but you either believe Russia is weak or you believe they're strong. If you believe they're strong and you don't want a World War III, then peace talk should be everything you focus on. So anyways, this went a little bit longer than I expected. Actually, it's not that bad. It's only 10 minutes over, considering how much I covered, how many grounds I covered. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts on this too. Like I said, if you have a different perspective you want to share with me, feel free to share it in the comments. I'm all open to looking at other perspective. Obviously, I'm not going to push the same narrative as mainstream media because that's very much left-leaning, but I'm going to keep an eye as to what's happening in London because I think Trump was supposed to be heading to London. Let's see. Based on like what that one lady said. Oh, wait a minute. There's something new here about the tariffs tomorrow. Is he going to London? I'm just looking here. I don't see anything. Do you guys know if he's supposed to be heading to London? Okay, David said that little unmarked area on the map doing a quick DuckDuckGo search says it's Russia. So there's a small little area that was on the map earlier that I was asking about. There was something else I wanted to talk about, but what was it? I'm just going to see if I missed one. I didn't play all the videos. We're running out of time, but yeah. I'll talk about it probably again tomorrow because there's probably going to be more development on it tomorrow. But again, if you have something you think I should watch relevant to the Russian-Ukraine war, feel free to send it to me. Maria says, well, it seems several NATO countries aren't military prepared for a paintball match. Best not to huff and puff. Okay, so David says Charles was inviting him to Scotland. That is all I heard. So he's not going to London. He's going to Scotland. Interesting. I'm going to see if I can find some stuff on there. Anyways, I'll be back tomorrow. The episode between Jonathan and I will probably be on an evening this week. I don't know when. I got to get the sound figured out so that we can have two mics working. And then hopefully we'll be able to talk about Western alienation. That's a topic my husband is extremely passionate about. So, but yeah, so hopefully we'll do that at some evening this week. I'd rather do it during the week because it takes me a lot to get ready to film. So, to be honest, I shouldn't even have mentioned I would do it on the weekend because it's supposed to be time with my family. But yeah, maybe we'll do it an evening this week. I just don't know what evening. It'll have to be one that he's not like so overwhelmed from the day working. David says, do you have an email? I'll send you a message, David. I want to send you the Pierce panel discussion with himself and Galloway. I would like to see that. I'll see if I can send you a message. Can you send a message on YouTube or are you on Facebook as well? Because if you search me on Facebook, Nadine Jean S, you can message me there. And then I'll send you my email. Trudeau and Zelensky both met with the king. Why? Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll let you guys go. I will be back tomorrow, hopefully closer to 12. So Mondays are a bit difficult because I have to drive my kids to the city to go to school. So, okay, I'll see if I can find a way to message you, David. I'll go into the comments. I'll see if there's a way. And then eventually I'm going to have a website where I'm in the process of building that, and there's going to be a way to contact me through there. I just don't have it right now, and I don't want to give away my personal email, not to everyone on the show. But But yeah, I'll try to be on tomorrow at 12. On Mondays, it's a bit harder because I have to drive my kids to the city. And then because I was already in the city, I wanted to get a couple of things. I just ran out of time even to get the stuff for the sound so that Jonathan can be on the show with me without any issues. Ooh, Sharon says Charles and Trump may be meeting at the Freemasons Club. Interesting. I've noticed there's a lot of that involved in politics at high level. I am not a Freemason. My husband's not a Freemason, or women can't be a part of it, but I'm not like a Northern Star, whatever it is. I'm a Christian and it goes against my faith. I should set up a generic email for this channel. I will. When my website's up, there'll be one attached to my website. I'll see if I can message you. Okay, I will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully around 12. See you guys.